How can education and learning make humanity more intelligent, knowledgeable, and wise enough to address its global challenges? As you can see, this graph here is referring to the percent of population with no formal education. And you see, under 1970, you had a large hunk of the world did not have any education. And that means no education, not even elementary school. Now you're coming down to 2020, and you see it's dropped dramatically, and we expect it to continue down. So the next generation or two, total education across the planet looks like it's possible, or at least the basics of it. So in 1965, 25% of the world's youth were illiterate. Today, it's less than 10%. So the world is getting better educated. And a new development that's important for tertiary education, for university education, to make that democratized around the world, are what are called MOOCs, or massively open online courses. So far, 101 million people have taken these courses at 900 universities and 11,000 different courses. That's the cumulative total, which is an awful lot. So now a lot of these courses are free. So when somebody says, gee, we don't have enough university access, or I can't afford to go to college, or that, well, baloney. Get yourself to a library that's got an internet connection and take a course and learn. You can do that. The offerings of the world are there, and I don't see enough of the world taking it. I mean, there should be much more than 100 million people taking these university courses. You got a population of 7.6, 7.7 billion people. So hopefully more and more people will take advantage of online university education than they have now. The leading, there's a bunch of them. You can later on you can check out any of these Coursera and the rest of these online systems and see what they've got that you want to learn. We talked before about lifelong learning. You should encourage your employees to do lifelong learning. You should encourage your clients to do it. You know, check it out, take a look, see what's there, and take advantage of these things. And you don't even just like have to take your final exam if you don't want to, but you want to learn. There's no reason you can't keep learning. Amazon, Facebook, Google are competing to complete the internet system worldwide. Some are talking about flooding the low orbiters with satellites, and some are using some balloons. There's different approaches to how to do it, but the race is on to get the other half of the world on the internet. Right now, half of the world's on it, 55% or so. But it looks like they're going to finish it off in our lifetime so that everybody has access. Artificial intelligence is being developed to figure out the best ways for you to learn, because each of us may have different approaches to learning. So artificial intelligence can diagnose your learning approaches. And then also what your gaps are that you ought to learn. You should know, and it'll teach you how to do that. It'll also teach you things that you want to learn, is also what you need to learn. So AI will be your assistant to make you smarter and more knowledgeable as we go along through time. Just as glasses augmented your eyes to see better, will augment our brains to become augmented geniuses. And Neuralink is hiring now to create that. I mentioned before, I think about the human brain projects before. In the United States are halfway through and of re-engineering the brain to understand the whole neural circuitry of the brain. And it's gotten funded for the next 5 years. So it looks like we may be able to finish off and understand the brain, which means we can understand how it works, how it malfunctions, where the diseases, pathologies, and make healthier brains so we can learn better and be better. So as I mentioned before, the brain project in the US, in the European Union, and China, South Korea is in the process as well. And they had a problem of North Koreans, if they unite with North Koreans, because North Koreans have been starved periodically, which means their brains didn't develop properly. They didn't get enough iron and protein as early children, which means that they've got to augment the brains for intelligence. So there's going to be some force for this in the future. AI projects, artificial brain projects are coming up in IBM, Google, Facebook, Baidu, Microsoft, Alibaba, Apple, and Amazon. So the race is on for the great brain race. So it's going to be interesting. Instead of like an arms race in the Cold War, we're having a brain race coming up. The nice thing about the fallout of the brain race is that we may be able to be augmented much more intelligent and healthier brain-wise than we have been in the past. 10 ways to increase individual intelligence. I'll go through this very quickly, but you can do this at your leisure. Each one of these don't make that much of a difference, but together they can. First, respond to feedback. Just getting feedback makes you dumb. It gives you information overload. That's the problem with what we got with all these social group and internet stuff going on. People are overloaded with input, but you got to respond to feedback. Better to get 10 items and respond to 10 items than to get 50 items and respond to none. Getting 50 items, responding to none makes you dumber. Getting 10 and responding to 10 makes you more intelligent because you're closing the loop in the brain. So responding to feedback, not just getting feedback. Consistency of love, diversity of environment. Intuitively, we know this when we have a baby. When we put a little baby in the crib, they put a little entertainment over, little hanging things hanging down, little sort of toys and so forth. And that's good. But change the color, the location, or something every day. Because if you give the stimulating environment for a baby, the next day, if you get the same one, the brain says, hey, I saw that. There's nothing for me to do. There's no brain wiring. So you got to get the consistency of love, or otherwise the diversity of environment makes the child nervous and shrinks the brain. So you have to do both. Consistently of love and diversity of environment improves the brain functioning. Nutrition, everybody understands that one. Reasoning exercises, I think everybody understands that one. Believing it is possible. Now, this is the cheapest one that's not used right. You know, if you think you can't get smarter, you probably won't. If you think it's impossible to improve brain function, you're not going to take this list seriously. The placebo effect in health, people jokingly say it's worth 10% recovery. Nobody knows, but we say 10%. So, but in any case, it helps. So that if you know in a hospital that if you think you're going to get worse, you get a little worse than you should have. And if you think you're going to get better, you get a little better than you should have. Okay, well, that's good for the brain too. If you think that your brain can be built, just like you got bodybuilding, we know we can build our muscles, and we know how to do that. Well, we got to build our brains. We got to learn how to do that. And if we think it's possible, one of the things I would challenge you all to do tonight, later on, Google 2 words, increasing intelligence. Just type in increasing and intelligence and enter. And you'll see there's a whole lot of ways of increasing intelligence. Our brains are not a fixed thing. We used to believe you had so many neurons and that was it. And if your IQ was X, there's no way to improve it. Turns out that's false. The brain is a very flexible system, and we got to learn how to use that flexible system better than we do today. But we got to believe it first. If we don't believe it, we're not going to try it. Contact with intelligent people. Now that was very cool, and everybody understands that. That's why the parents say, hey, hang out with Jimmy. He's very smart. All right? It's intuitive and it's correct. But you can't have 99% of the people hanging out with 1%. It's not possible, except in VR simulations, it is. You could have a virtual reality simulation on the internet having Einstein teach you relativity. What a gas. We can have contact with intelligent people on the internet by different simulations and different VRs and so forth. And we should do this. Software systems and gaming. You can overdo it, like South Korea, overdoes it. But gaming and software systems can make you smarter. Neuropharmacology, very controversial. We know that the brain is at least a chemical system. It's more than that, but it's at least a chemical system. What chemistry is good? What chemistry is bad? We got to learn how to use the right chemistry in pharmaceuticals for brain. Memes on classroom walls. Memes are the idea of a contagious idea, like a contagious virus, and it's a play on the English word gene. Genes make up the body. Memes make up the civilization. Let me repeat that. Genes make up the body. Memes make up the civilization. So if you want to improve civilization, you can improve the memes. So for example, we got too many women running around the world pretending not to be so intelligent because they believe that if they're too intelligent, they'll scare away the man. Well, with women's liberation, that's opening up a little bit. Now So one of the memes we want to put into civilization is intelligence is sexy. If you're an intelligent woman, that's cool. That's attractive. That's not going to frighten me away. That's cool. That's intelligent. That's sexy. So these are memes we can use in classroom. We can put them in school doors and on the floors and different places, different kinds of memes to make us better. Low stress, stimulating environments with certain music, color, fragrances improves concentration and brain performance. We know this, but we don't apply it. What scents, as in smells, are better for the brain when in an active environment like talking? What scents or smells are good for just listening? What scents or music is best for reading, etc.? There's a lot of this research being done. We just don't even begin to apply this stuff. To address future automation and changes, anything that is repetitive, it's reasonable to assume will sooner or later be replaced by a repetitive machine, repetitive software, but not a repetitive person. So right now, you got a lot of jobs that are repetitive and they're not replaced yet, but they probably will be in the future. So how do we prepare for this? One, increase focus on developing creativity, critical thinking, human relations, philosophy, entrepreneurship, individual and teams, because we're going to create our own lives rather than just inheriting it from somebody else. Art, self-employment, social harmony, ethics, values. Know thyself to build and lead a meaningful working life. Why get born, work, and die and never know who you really are? We tend to identify ourselves by our job and our employer. I am an engineer working for IBM. We make that sort of identity. But if that job is gone and you're creating your own life, then you've got to figure out, how do I have self-respect? How do I have all this sort of stuff? As we're growing up, the idea of inventing your life is more likely in the future than in the past. Include potential futures as we include history in curriculum. When you learn physics, or you learn math, or you learn anything, government, automatically the teacher says, well, you know, the early people, Copernicus and Socrates, these are what these guys did, now we do this. We just automatically include history in what we teach. But we don't automatically include, what are the potential futures of this? I'll never forget, I was in 7th grade or 8th grade, and the mathematics teacher said something that blew my mind for the rest of my life. He said, not all of mathematics has been invented yet. I'm sitting there in this classroom, I'm saying, what? We've got physics, I mean, we've got chemistry, I mean, we've got algebra, we've got geometry, we've got trigonometry. What's to be invented? The idea of inventing the future of mathematics, to me, was a complete impossible question. Well, it opened up my mind. So I think it'd be a little nice if all teachers, whatever subject they're teaching, what are the future possibilities of this? And do we include it in the same way that we include a little touch about the history of stuff? So that as you're learning things, you're anticipating what you might want to do in the future about it. Make teleeducation free everywhere, ubiquitous and lifelong learning. This is the trend. It seems to be inevitable. Shift toward mastering skills rather than mastering a profession. Believe it or not, a lot of lawyers are going to be automated. So you want to master the skills of a lawyer that you can apply to a lot of different things. But mastering the profession of a lawyer may not be as useful if you're going to be automated out of a job. In parallel to STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, mathematics, education, in parallel to STEM, create a hybrid system of self-paced, inquiry-based learning for self-actualization, and retrain teachers as coaches using new artificial intelligence tools with students. Some implications for business. Establish a labor, business, government, next technologies, future job skills, retraining databases. So the teachers can take a look at that businesses can say, here's some new jobs and skills I want to be done, and have a common collective intelligence system so that even students can go into it and say, wow, I never thought about that as a career. That's interesting stuff. How do I do that? And then click, they go into a MOOC and they go online and they get an education for it. Develop individual augmented genius apps. This could be gigantic. I mean, how many people wear glasses in the world? A lot. And how many different kind of glasses are there? There's red glasses and green glasses, and there's small glasses and big glasses. We have a plethora of eyeglasses. Well, you can also have a plethora of apps for brain augmentation. Tremendous growth in this area. So if somebody's into the software businesses, think about how they can make apps and learn to play around. How do you make an app to make somebody smarter, more intelligent, or more aware, or connected to the internet, or whatever it happens to be? Tremendous growth in this area. Put memes in advertisements that promote education. So if you're working with a client or you're doing businesses yourself that have advertising, you can't advertise a product without attachment of a value. You can't say buy X. You got to say buy X because it helps you with Y. The Y can be a learning meme. You know, buy my product because it'll make you as cool as you learn things. Or buy my product, it's a knowledge thing that makes you sexy. So get these ideas into the public through advertising. You gotta put some value, something in there anyway. So you might as well put something useful, rather than say, buy my product and crush your opponent.